look at that juicy baby back rib right there, I'm ready to dive in. Always like to go for the middle first. What is up, Black's Barbecue family? Today we are talking pork baby back ribs, or also known as pork loin back baby back ribs. It's a lot of lingo going on right there. These are actually, the real name is pork loin back ribs, and baby back is actually a marketing term that some people came up with. There's probably a jingle coming to your head that you're thinking of right now. Baby back, baby back, baby back. But a common misconception, baby back ribs do not come from baby pig. They just refers to the smaller size that they are compared to the traditional pork spare ribs or St. Louis cut ribs. They are shorter and a little more rounded, a little bit more curved. We'll see more of that when we're cutting the fully cooked version. But these come closer to the spine of the pig. And so they have more of that curve. And then as it goes down to the belly of the pig, it's the spare rib and all the other parts. Let's get into pork loin back ribs and how to choose them. I bought these 2 racks from my local grocery store. If you only had, these 2 versions to choose from, which I did, and you're only needing one, things that I'm looking out for when I'm buying just 1 rack of ribs is, first I'm looking at the top and I'm seeing, is there any meat missing? Is there any bones poking through that I can visually see where the butcher just got a little sloppy or something? Something that's pretty noticeable, you might have noticed already, is this package has some air in it, and it was like that when I bought it, and that just means that there's been a small, could be a little tiny pinhole leak somewhere in the packaging that let some air in. Now that's not an automatic thing that means that the meat is no good. It might have happened that morning or something like that. The meat's not spoiled necessarily, but if you have the option, I'd go ahead and pass over that one because there's a possibility that it could be spoiled. So what I'm also looking for is the layers of fat on top. You want some fat, this solid white fat on here. It's not going to be solid across the top. You don't want too much. You want just the right balance. So this one I really like. It has its pockets, but it's not huge or super concentrated in one area where it's just going to be a solid bite of fat that we might have to trim off. And then for flavor, just like in brisket or steak, it's all about the marbling. Yes, pork has marbling as well, and that's something you really want to pay attention to. And so I'm just looking at not just the big chunks of fat, but all the spider webs of fat, the white webbing that's inside these muscles. That's what's going to melt in your mouth. That's what's going to make the meat juicy. That's what's going to make you, your friends, your family, everybody super happy and glad you were the one man in the smoker because you started out with a really great piece of meat. The other thing I would look for, I would turn it over and just look through the bag right here and just see, is there much fat, underneath the membrane, underneath the bone. The bone shouldn't be poking through anywhere too much. You want meat to go, end to end on that rack, but I'm looking for the marbling underneath there as well. This would be the one I would choose. It's got a great coloration. I can't feel really any bones through it. I can if I push really hard, but it's got a nice cushion of meat on top of it. When I'm cutting these open, I want to be careful. I don't want to cut into it and scar the meat on top. And also, I don't want to scar the membrane on the back either. So I'm just gonna find a corner and just poke through with my sharp knife. I'm using it as just a normal chef's knife. That's the most common knife in the entire world, a 7-inch chef's knife. And just make sure it's nice and sharp, but nothing special about the knife. And I'm just gonna rip it open because I wanna keep everything intact as much as possible. And there we have a beautiful rack of ribs right there. As you can see, there's not a whole lot we need to do here. You're always gonna find some surprises when you take it out of the package because when it's vacuum sealed super tight, of course, you're not gonna see this flap coming up right here. Just like a brisket, I'm looking for anything loose that's kind of hanging out, any small little pieces that might burn up. I want to use any of this valuable meat for beans or flavor or anything like that. So I've got this little piece I noticed, just kind of a ridge right here. We can have that folded over and that's going to be good, but it's also just really thin right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim that up so it doesn't burn, kind of round off those corners. It's got a little bit of cartilage, a little bit of bone in there. So when I use this for soup or stew or something like that, I'll make sure I separate that bone out, put that to the side. But really, there's not a whole lot to be done here. We talked about the membrane. We're gonna leave that membrane on because look at all that beautiful fat that's right underneath the membrane, right under there. When we cook this right, this membrane is gonna be nice and crispy. You're gonna bite right through it and you're gonna get all that flavor through there. A lot of opposition to leaving the membrane on is that it's chewy or it blocks smoke or seasoning or anything like that. My thinking is, if you're removing that membrane or scoring or something like that, you're basically just poking holes in your buckets of flavor. And we want to hold all that in as much as we can because it's not a very thick piece of meat and we want to keep as much of that fat and flavor as we can. So cooking at the right temperature for the right amount of time, membrane's just you're not even gonna know it's there. So we're gonna season this just like we season everything else at the original Black's Barbecue. We've been around since 1932. We haven't changed the way we season stuff since then. Table salt and black pepper. Bottle of rub's got a little bit of red pepper in there too for just a small amount of kick, but we're using just table salt and coarse black pepper. And I suggest that everybody, if you're just starting out and you're still learning your smoker, start with that as well, salt and pepper. Not to say you can't get experimental with other flavors that you enjoy, but for that initial cook, start with salt and pepper to season that meat nice and evenly, nice and thoroughly. Let the salt tenderize the meat. And then after you pull it off the smoker, right when you pull off the smoker, add some of your other herbs and spices. Because if you add those too early, right at the beginning of the cook, they're just gonna burn, they're gonna get bitter, you're gonna ruin kind of the flavors of pork, and that's not what you're looking for. But here at Black's Barbecue, start with salt and black pepper. We don't add anything else. Like my grandfather always says, not what we put on the meat that makes it so good, it's what we don't put on it that makes it so good. So this is the smoker my grandfather built back in the 1940s. Every single day it runs at 275 degrees, and you know, that's what works for us, what works for our smoker. But for your smoker, it might be different, so I'd start maybe at 225, just to take it nice and easy until you get used to it. And that's gonna cook for, 3 or 4 hours. We're gonna check it after a couple of hours and see if it's tender. It doesn't matter how long you cook it, it matters how tender your ribs are. So while that rack is cooking on the smoker, I went ahead and borrowed a rack from the front from the guys. Don't worry, we'll take good care of this one and get it back for selling. But look at this absolute beauty of a rack of pork ribs. I mean, literally my mouth is watering looking at it still, and I see these every single day. And the keys to knowing when this one was done, see, I can't even talk straight because it's making me hungry. Yes, it was time. We know it takes generally about 3 to 4 hours for these racks of ribs, but they all act a little bit different, but it's tenderness. I mentioned that earlier. People care about tenderness. I care about tenderness. You care about tenderness. Everybody cares about how tender it is when we're eating it. It's the flavor and how tender it is because we don't want to keep chewing. And the way that my grandfather taught me was with thermometer probe. He always carried around a broken thermometer in his pocket because he didn't care what temperature it was because he knew it was safe to eat. He used it to see how tender it was. If you don't have a probe thermometer, you can also just use a plain old toothpick. And what you're gonna do is get it between the bones. So you're gonna find, okay, here's a couple bones right here. Get between there, and you're gonna poke it through, then you're gonna pull it out and just feel, is there much resistance there? The membrane will give it a little bit resistance, so you're just kind of feeling for the meat. Does it go in and out like butter? Is it smooth, or is it kind of, you feel the friction and kind of the rubberiness and it's sticking? If it's still kind of sticking and you feel the friction, that just means that connective tissue and all those beautiful parts of the rib that turn into a great eating experience haven't broken down yet, and you need to cook it a little bit longer. And then go ahead and look at this beautiful color that these pork ribs turned into. That is not sauce. That is the natural look of the meat and the muscles that when they interact with the smoke and the salt and everything, it turns that beautiful mahogany red color. And you can see the golden strips of fat in there that I'm just ready to dive into. And you can still see it, the bark, the bits of pepper on there. You can see it's not very much. There's so many people that are putting so much stuff on the ribs before they cook it. It looks like it has a bark before it's even been cooked. But we've developed a nice, beautiful bark. That salt is dissolved and gotten super flavorful in here. So I was always taught by my grandfather, for ribs, you want the bones that are sticking out at the bottom of the rack pointing away from you. I'm gonna get my scraper. It's what we use at Black's Barbecue. It's this bench scraper, just to keep our hands safe. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for the bones right here. And then I put the tip of the knife. You don't have to have a super long knife like this. This is just one of my favorites that I keep around. But you're trying to get in between the bones, and you keep the knife handle up. Oh, I missed it. There we go. And then you can just feel to get through there and kind of go along the natural curve of the bone. Look at that juicy baby back rib right there. You can see all the marbling that was in it that melted. See a little bit of fat cap over here. That's gonna be one of my favorite bites as well. The meat is nice and pink, not because it's underdone, because of the smoke that's penetrated through it fully. It's basically the smoke ring is encompassing the entire piece of the meat, and absolutely perfect. It's not fall off the bone. That's not what we're going for. We're going for just the right bite. So when you bite it, it still sticks. I'm ready to dive in. I always like to go for the middle first. Honestly, guys, still hits me every single time. That's Texas barbecue baby back ribs right there. So thank you for joining me on this journey of baby back ribs. Let us know your journey. What do you like to do with your baby back ribs? Are there special seasonings and flavors that you do? What type of smoker do you have? If you got any questions, let us know. We'll be right here for you. So subscribe, and we'll be right back with some more videos for you. Thanks, fam.